Aloha, everybody. Welcome to the program. We have decided that it would be important for the church, the body of Christ, to find out as much as we can about all of these candidates who are running for the governor's race, the primary and the general that are coming up very, very soon. And so what we did was we took our time to sit down with all of these different candidates and to ask them the same 4 questions. And I'm looking forward to our interview today with Gary Cordery.
Hey, aloha. My name is Waxer, and I'm part of a group of pastors that have been interviewing all of the candidates running for governor here in Oahu so that you, the body, can be better informed when you're praying about these decisions so you'll know who they are and the direction that you feel led to vote. So today we have with us the governor candidate, and that is Gary Cordery. Gary, so blessed to have you with us today.
Oh, Waxer, thank you. It's an honor to be here. And,
hey, I know you, but I would love for you to share with the group a little bit about you. Who is Gary Cordery?
Gary Cordery, well, thank you. Gary Cordery, I'm 62 years old. I'm a husband of 41 years with my beautiful bride, Kim.
Nice.
We have 2 adult daughters, Rachel and Erica, and we have 7 grandchildren there. And it's a fantastic life that we have. You know, I'm exceedingly blessed. We moved here in 1981.
Okay.
We came on vacation and never went home. It's a cliche, but it actually
Wow.
happened. Just got involved here. Got involved in a Bible study in Kuli'o'o and met a guy who wanted to do construction and started there. I've been in construction. I'm a general contractor. I'm not a politician, even though we're having a kind of bit of an interview on a political matter.
Yeah.
Day to day, how I pay the bills is with construction. So
Nice.
it's a new adventure. Here we go.
So you know all of that side from the contractor, Department of Planning. You have all that experience, don't you?
Yeah, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this is an experience that most would avoid if possible.
All right. Well, hey, for the sake of time, let's dive right in. So first question, given your experience, Gary, what is it going to take to turn this state around?
Well, actually, that's a great question. So my experience has been in discovering what the governor does, the authority that the governor has here in Hawaii. Just in my study, when I first started, I heard the question, what does it mean to govern? I'd asked the question. And in studying for what the governor's authority and what he does in his relationship to the legislator and the Congress and various agencies, the way to turn the state around is really not about a conversation between the governor and the legislative branch. It's really about understanding who the governor nominates to run departments. So the key to change in Hawaii is to actually nominate people within the departments, whether it be the director, deputy director, or the tiers of administrative pieces below those. And so I'm referring to the Department of Health, the Department of Education, DLNR. These 3 departments actually implement the policy that actually touches all of our lives on a regular basis. It's not so much the legislative branch. And there's some mystery about that people think that the legislators really are the ones who make the difference. It's actually the policymakers in the departments. So working with the consent of the Senate, we'll be looking to put people in those positions that actually understand and grant access for the citizens to see actual solutions implemented so that our lives are made abundant.
Okay. How many positions are you speaking about?
Well, directly 192 deputy directors and deputy directors, but overall, by the time you go through those administrative tiers, there's nearly 10,000 people that are nominated by the governor. He is by far the most powerful governor in the nation. This because of the way our government is set up. He nominates everything, including the attorney general, sheriff, judges, less the Supreme Court. They nominate the Ethics Commission, and then all agencies. So when you think about that, it can be overwhelming. But it can also present great opportunity and hope.
Okay.
So we're contrasting both. This is why we're stuck. This is why we're having a hard time. This is why we have so much dysfunction, so much corruption. At the same time, the governor has this ability by choice of who runs these departments to really redirect the way government is implemented. Yes, it's really exciting.
Now, part of the question says, given your experience, so understanding there, I guess put us a little bit about how, Gary, your experience would be in the recognition of this epiphany of how many changes and where power really is. How does your experience apply best?
Well, my experience moving forward in absolute application really comes from understanding what it means to be a general contractor.
Okay.
The revelation that I've had about how to do this came from the king.
Okay.
He took me to the ground, literally, on my face. And then after revealing to me that this is what I must do, he told me, you must seek wisdom. And so that process of seeking wisdom brought about the study of a governor's roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
Practically, from a tangible, practical standpoint, contractors and many in business deal with all these agencies on a regular basis. We deal with what it means to understand the job, the scope of a work, the tools that are necessary, the resources, the timeline, subcontractors. Then you have insurance pieces, workman's comp, unemployment, all that. Then you have the legal pieces, what rights and responsibilities, and then you have the government part, the permitting and development and conditional use permits, and all of these components. They're very similar to how a government functions. They're all these components, but unless they're coordinated, you have dysfunction. But if they're coordinated, you have a successful project, and you'll have a successful government.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Well, as you're well aware, we have an incredible blessing as well as an incredible vulnerability, being an island, being the furthest landmass from any other continent and such, being out here in Hawaii. And so we enjoy the beautiful weather where we are, but we also know that we are at the vulnerability of any type of crisis at any moment, at any time. And the greatest thing that most folks are not aware of is the potential food and water crisis for really on island. There's only about 12 days of supply at any time if everyone was to run. What would be some of your ideas and plans to deal with this potential problem, crisis, and solution?
Well, I've been talking about this for a while on the campaign now. The fact that we don't have local industry anymore. And I mentioned, do you remember medical dairy?
Absolutely.
Do you remember produce
or
or poultry or beef?
Yeah.
These things used to be a part of our economy. We had robust ag industry here in Hawaii. But over the decades, through bad policy, through DLNR and Department of Health, these parts of our economy have slowly been dismissed. They've been replaced by a dependence on the mainland shipments from Matson or other things. So when you go into the supermarket, you go into Safeway, it's beautiful. The produce is amazing, right? Until you realize that none of these products are here grown locally, and this is a tragedy. Hawaii should not be experiencing this. We have some of the most fertile soil. The growing conditions are fantastic. Everybody knows this, and so the question must be raised. Why? So regulations, fees, taxes, bad policy, and the constraining of the ability for the local farmer, the local industry to actually be profitable. It's one thing to have a business, but if the business is not profitable, it will not succeed. It will not be around in 2, 3, 5, 10 years. So the process within DLNR and how the issue lands to the farmer, availability of natural resources, water, marketplaces, the ability to move goods between the islands. So I envision a goods and services nonprofit ferry, so that we can so that a person has a profitable business. If they currently want to move that product, they have to use Young Brothers. Well, there goes their profit. So there's a market. The natural resources are there. So now we need transportation. So I think through these processes of actually transforming lease lands for these farmers, give them a long-term or let them own the land.
Yeah.
These are critical elements for any business. You cannot have uncertainty in your marketplace.
Right.
Whether it's in the financial piece, whether it's in the whatever the market is, there must be some consistency. The farmers do not have that. So this is a big problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listening to you kind of brought to my mind what is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Right.
So that's good. That's a good insight that you have there. Okay, a question that I know you would have a lot of fervor on, and that is, where do you stand on family values? And that's a kind of a broad term. So maybe explain that term first, and then tell me how you stand on that.
Yeah. I love the question. When I came to the decision to run, it really wasn't about wanting to be a politician. I don't have a preference to be a politician.
Okay.
I could have been fine. I'm still working. But God said, I want righteousness at the head of government. He says, I want you to take the horn. He wants to establish righteous government so that the people will prosper. Our people here in Hawaii are groaning and suffering because we don't have biblical leadership at the head. Honesty, integrity, responsibility, accountability, transparency. These are building blocks for a good society, but these are also kingdom principles. These are the kinds of things when applied to a government, the tangible result is the people prosper. So family values, if you go to the highest level, that's the one. But for me personally, family values, it's Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. It's my family. It's how I'm with my wife. I've been with her for 41 years. We have these great kids who love God, serving Him, great grandkids. The greatest accomplishment, people ask me, well, what do you have by way of accomplishment? I would say, look at my family. You really want to know about the character of a man or a woman? You look at Jerusalem. You see how it's functioning. And I am exceedingly proud about the way our kids are living their lives. And Kim and I, we couldn't be more proud and more happy. But honestly, it's the grace of God. So family values, it starts there. Family values then goes out. How you are with your neighbor, how you are with your coworkers, how you are with those whom you maybe don't even get along with, maybe you don't see eye to eye. You still extend the olive branch to them simply because you know who made them. They're created in the image of God. So it's a reflection of Him, how I hold my brother. So, family values can be, as you said, it can be quantified in a number of areas. But I think what we're talking about in this conversation, government, biblical family values in government for the people's transformation and well-being.
Okay. I guess, again, clarify for me, but where would you stand on that? That's just the unique part of that question. In other words, you explained it, your perspective of that, but where would you stand? How would you be defined as?
Well, first of all, I will from the governor's office, I will make clear that we're operating on biblical principles, and we'll walk that out in humility. This is not a position of arrogance. This is a position of integrity.
Right.
This is what it means to stand with integrity. Right. That's what God does.
Right.
He brings the truth. Right. Out of His throne is righteousness and justice. So those are the kind of principles that will actually be articulated from the governor's office. And so when legislation comes and it aligns with that, we'll celebrate it and sign it. When it doesn't, we'll talk about it. We'll articulate what doesn't work. And if we cannot come to an agreement, we're going to send it back.
Okay.
So it won't just be theoretical. It won't just be a declaration of right and wrong.
Well, you obviously have declared where your position will come from in a biblical worldview.
Yeah.
How will your administration deal with those who do not have that? How will it be, in responding to the many who do not have that worldview?
Yeah. Great question. People ask me about that, and I simply tell them, listen, I'm not running as pastor of the state, right? I'm running as chief executive officer. Okay. We're running across the board. We're not running for a Republican. We're not running for a Democrat. We're running for the people. All the people will be blessed. All the people will experience abundance. So it's really, extending that is not about somebody conforming to my worldview. It's not about that. It's actually understanding that who they are. You're a gift. You're a gift because not only what you are in our community, but you're a gift because you're created in God's image. That alone makes you worthy of equal respect. Yeah. And that means that there's an olive branch. There's no judgment. Right. So whatever your political perspective is, wherever you come from, we work together. Yeah. And so that's how it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I read that somewhere about all men and women are created equal.
Yeah, something like that. That's
something about the Constitution, United States.
Yeah, what an idea.
All right.
I like that.
So given the Supreme Court's leak that they've had and all of the hustle and bustle that's been going on about the abortion issue, what is your view on the right to life and how would you deal with that as governor?
I hear this question, and honestly, as governor, well, let me just back up. The issue of right to life is really not an issue to me of choice. It's an issue of understanding the gift of life, right? The gift of life is given by God. This is not given by man. The actual inception of a person is designed by God. It comes from the very beginning. So life is at conception. This is not up for grabs. And there was years ago when that argument could be made because there wasn't the technology to prove that life was in fact from whatever number of days. Right. So for me personally, life is at conception. The preciousness of a human life it reflects the glory and the grace of God. Some don't come full term, and most do. But the idea that man would take a position where they could actually interrupt that's not life. Right. So people have asked me this question, and if legislation were to come to my desk and Hawaii was to decide, the legislative branch was to decide to overturn Roe v. Wade here locally, I would definitely sign the legislation. Okay. There's absolutely no hesitation to do so. The governor isn't going to make that law, but I can assure you that my heart would definitely be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. There's a very unique situation this year in that there is a plethora of candidates that are running.
Yeah.
Many of them even coming from, conservative positions and such. So what distinguishes you as a candidate running for governor this year?
Yeah, great question. I love the question. What distinguishes? Everybody's unique. I would say that first of all. I would say the distinction, though, that I bring is I actually know what it means to sign both sides of the check. I'm a businessman, right? I'm a businessman. I'm a father of 41 years. I have great history in the community. I'm not a politician, right? I don't have any historical background. I'm beholden to no one, right?
Yeah.
I'm clear about why I'm running, which is most important of all. I know that I'm called. I know that when November rolls around, we will look up and say, look what God has done. He will get the glory.
Okay.
I know that there's a lot to learn, but I know that I'm teachable. I know there's enough humility in here to walk with people who I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand that humility is just to agree with what is true. So I'll be an invitation. I have the right demeanor. Actually, I have the right demeanor for this position, which I started hearing people several weeks ago. You have the right demeanor for this. I said, well, fair enough. That's a blessing to hear that. But what separates me is the fact that I will stand. When people want to cave, I will not cave. For the last couple of years, I've stood in the streets. I stood for liberty for the people in Hawaii. And I'm clear about why I'm doing it. Therefore, the circumstances really don't matter to me. Who enters the race? Okay, fine, good. So be it. This is liberty.
Right.
I'm clear about why I'm running.
Okay.
And I'm clear that in that position, it will require a stand that we haven't seen in Hawaii. We have not seen what's going to be required to deal with the corruption, the illumination, the transparency. These are issues that are systemic in our society, and they're undermining everything that we hope for as families.
Yeah.
I will stand.
Okay.
And we will bring people to the table and bring people into the administration, into our communities that understand what it means to serve the people with honor, with justice. And then I will, in addition, I will do everything I can to take the power away from the governor's seat. We need an elected attorney general. We need an elected sheriff. We need a nonpartisan elected ethics commission. These positions currently are all nominated by the governor. This is part of the reason why we have such corruption. You have basically the fox watching the chicken coop right now, right? And so until that's broken up, until we have integrity at that piece, we'll do as you said. We'll have the definition of insanity. We'll just keep doing the same thing, hoping for a different result. You must change the dynamics of government.
And you're different because that's your passion.
That's my
That's what
passion.
you're saying.
We're going to bring liberty to the
Okay.
people.
Sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been very clear with us, Gary, that you're coming from a biblical worldview, and yet you just stated that you are not here to run as pastor, but
That's
as
right.
governor.
Yeah.
So how would you see the church? Because being what person who's been in the church, and your parents with YWAM, I understand, which is an organization that has, empowers youth to do things throughout the community. How do you see the government and the church working together, since you do have an inside understanding of all that churches do in communities?
Yeah. Well, for clarification, it's my wife's folks, Chuck and Donnie. They're in Kona. They've actually retired at this point, but we had a lifetime of ministry with them and love every minute of it, and very honored for it. So, but the question is really relevant because there's some idea that there should be this separation of church and state. This is fairly common language in our society now, that the church shouldn't infiltrate government and vice versa, and we have these components at work. For me personally, I think the church plays a vital role in the health of society. I believe it's the pinnacle. It is actually what should set the standard for the well-being, the social well-being, and not so much the health, but the social and spiritual well-being of society should rest with the church.
I totally agree.
The government within its policies, through whether it's Department of Health or DLNR, within even the Department of Education, they should get out of the way. They should empower the church. They should do everything that they can to release the church to be the gift that they are. There's people in the church that love to serve. They want to serve their fellow man. It burns in them. It's a gift from God. And that government somehow would take a position where they're going to control how to manage the public health. I think that's exceedingly unwise. I think throughout the centuries, you've seen communities start, and they always started around the church. The church was first established, and then the community came around it. Now, that's not the current environment that we live in. We see government constraining the church, limiting the church's ability to love their neighbor, to help the homeless, to feed, to do work programs. And for what reason? It baffles me, honestly. It doesn't resonate me as common sense. There doesn't seem to be a legal piece in it. So to me, it's a big miss on government's part.
I would say, as a person on that receiving end, often rendered impotent because there is a perceived agenda. Rather than recognizing we want to work with homeless, period. We want to be able to, but for some reason, because of a perspective, that would render us, as not valid to come alongside, which isn't the case.
I actually don't think there's anything more effective than one human being serving another. right? It is love your neighbor as yourself.
Absolutely.
And that the idea we don't embrace that as a basic principle in our society, it makes no sense to me. I don't even at any level.
Okay.
That we should support that. That really government should enhance that opportunity as much as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, since you've been running, obviously you've been at a plethora of these types of things with a plethora of questions being thrown at you. What's the question that we should be asking? What is the question that you go to things, I wish someone would ask me this? What is that question that we, the people, ought to be asking of our governor candidates?
That's a really good question. What should the people, what I hope for is from our people, from the people of Hawaii, is I would like them to be asking the question, how can we get involved? How can we, the people, actually from the grassroots level, get involved in our government again?
Good.
People have actually stepped back from government because government has actually made it hard for them to involve. You see the plywood structure around the square house. That's the first thing that's going to happen in our administration. We're going to take that down because that wall actually represents the separation between people and their government.
Yeah.
That we have these termed people who have been in there for numerous years. The people need to come out. They need to come out and get re-engaged. They need to understand that this is their lives, this is their family, this is their legacy piece. So people rarely ask that question. We delegate things in our minds. People are working too hard. They're working 2.5 jobs. They hardly have time to have dinner with their family.
Right.
Yet get engaged with government.
Right.
But what they don't see is that the fact that they don't get engaged with government doesn't result in freedom, doesn't result in liberty, doesn't result in abundance. It undermines all those things and the hopes for those pieces, those family and legacy pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I hope that has been very helpful for you just to have an introduction to Gary. And if you want to know more about him and his campaign, his webpage is?
Gary Cordery for governor.com. It's FOR, not the number 4, but Gary Cordery for governor.com. You can join. Okay. Thank you for that. There's opportunities for the people to come. We're calling people to come out of the stands. Most of our people don't vote, or more than 50% do not vote. We're saying come out of the stands and get back onto the field of life. Yeah, and come run with us.
And that is the purpose that we pastors are being driven on this, is we want to encourage you to be involved, to step forward. You have, and not only a voice, you have an opportunity and a calling to help make Hawai'i nei. It's not the politicians, it's the people that put the politicians in place that actually have the biggest responsibility. So please take time, watch all of these candidates, listen, learn, pray, and let's see God do great things this year in Hawai'i nei. God bless you. Have a great day.
God bless you. Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that was informative and you got to know more about the man behind the calling on his life. Go to his website if you'd like more information. That is below here on the screen. And I pray that you make an informed biblical decision on who you vote for this year for governor. Aloha.